Hello, today I'm recording my first practice run of my bail app. May it please your worship, my name is EllJanIsh and I'm appearing on behalf of the defendant Mr Bracken to make an application for bail on behalf of Mr Bracken. Mr Bracken accepts the charges and he understands he could be facing a custodial sentence. However, he is remorseful. Your worship, may I please proceed with my application?
You may.
Thank you. Your worship, would you like a reminder as to the facts of the case?
Yes, please.
Mr Bracken was a 35-year-old male who was charged with taking and driving a vehicle with excess alcohol whilst being disqualified. Your worship, the defendant would like to invite the court to consider this was not a high degree of seriousness. He took the tractor and drove off with it. There was no indication of dangerous driving. The police only stopped him as they were suspicious as to a tractor driving down a suburban road in Moseley. Your worship, I would like to remind the court that no one was injured and there was no damage to property. Therefore, your worship, the defendant's submission is the offence was not a serious one. Your worship, my learned friend suggested that Mr Bracken was at a high risk of absconding, as he has family in Ireland. However, Mr Bracken is willing to surrender his passport as a condition for bail to demonstrate to the court that he will surrender to custody. However, your worship, if this does not satisfy the court, Mr Bracken has also suggested he would be willing to undergo electric monitoring for the period of bail. Mr Bracken asked for bail to be granted and in light of the issues of absconding is willing to be subject to conditions of bail. Your worship, Mr Bracken understands that he does not qualify for a bail hostel as he has a drink problem. However, he is a skilled labourer and has savings to use to put forward for a permanent abode or as a surety, to demonstrate yet again to the court his willingness to be subject to conditions for bail. Your worship, Mr Bracken has never committed offence whilst on bail before and he is not at a high risk to do so. He has strong community ties as he's a labourer. He has friends in the trade and he's a family man who's close to his mother. We understand that Mr Bracken's relationship with his partner has been somewhat turbulent at times. However, Mr Bracken is very much in love and he is willing to get help with his drink problem to ensure that he has a more stable relationship. He asked for bail to be granted as he is not at a high risk of committing an offence whilst on bail. Your worship understands that Mr Bracken has previous convictions. However, these are all alcohol related. It could be stated that Mr Bracken is in fact an alcoholic. If bail was granted today, your worship, Mr Bracken will receive help for his drink. He couldn't do this if he was remanded in custody. Drinking is at the heart of his behaviour and he wants to put an end to this with the help of his family. Your worship, this could also be imposed as a condition if bail was granted today. He could meet with a probation officer or join AA meetings and receive counselling to help with his drink issues. Mr Bracken asked bail to be granted so that he can get help with his drink issues with support of his friends and family, something, your worship, he could not do if he was remanded in custody. Mr Bracken submits that the offence itself was not a serious one and he is willing to have conditions imposed for the issues presented before the court today. Your worship, that concludes the submissions I wish to make on behalf of Mr Bracken. Mr Bracken urges the court for bail to be granted, unless there are any issues on which I may be referred for assistance, your worship.
No, thank you.
Thank you.